In a blow for taxi travellers, the state government has announced yet another increase in fares for Sydney, Wollongong and Newcastle. The increase is implemented annually by the state government and is in line with changes to the Consumer Price Index. However, last financial year, prices were put up until December, which means consumers will feel the burden of this latest rise just 10 months later. The new prices mean it will cost 10 cents extra to hire a cab, a 5-cent increase for each kilometre travelled, and an increase in waiting time charges from $18 to $19.20 an hour. The radio booking surcharge and luggage fees will remain the same. In real terms, the Taxi Council estimates an increase of around 41 cents for the average journey and says it's a modest rise and will not be noticed by customers as other costs around them are on the increase as well. But travellers watching the fare mount as the kilometres tick over may think otherwise. The changes are effective from this Sunday.
A national strike loomed when Hunter Valley miners narrowly rejected the Coal Industry Tribunal's proposed changes to work practices. Coal industry officials have been nervously awaiting today's outcome. A national strike loomed when Hunter Valley miners narrowly rejected the Coal Industry Tribunal's proposed changes to work practices. Coal industry officials have been nervously awaiting today's outcome from 8,000 miners in Queensland and northern New South Wales. The Gunnedah meeting followed the state trend and rejected the proposals. However, the Queensland vote means that the aggregate vote of miners from both states is in favour of accepting the changes. They include the operation of mines over the Christmas period, shifts lengthened from 7 to 8 hours per day, and a 6-day working week. The Coal Industry Tribunal made the recommendations for change following disagreements between mining unions and the Coal Owners Association. The tribunal said a rise of $16 in pay plus 4% will be payable to miners upon agreement of the new conditions. Queensland spokesman said today that the new work practices could be introduced within 3 weeks with the cooperation of mining companies.
Unaffected by a recent leg fracture, Watson was in superb form, thrilling the crowd with his daring style in both the sprint and the limit finals. The wins inspired Watson to announce his total commitment to preparation for the Australian Solo Championship to be held at the Motordrome in January. However, he'll be seriously challenged next month when local internationals Stephen Davies and Todd Wiltshire return from a victorious season in England.
Chris Watson goes to the lead. Edwards tries to come back at him, but to no avail. A brilliant ride by Chris Watson. Second place today.
Also last night, Curry driver John Pine powered his Pontiac Firebird to victory in the Super Sedan division. Coming from midfield, he snatched a narrow win from John Brown's Camaro in the French Brothers tyres main feature, breaking the record for the 15-lap event.
Brown's gone up to the infield. John Pine in all sorts of trouble, but he'll win. John Pine, unbelievable stuff. He's into the fence at turn 1. He only just finished that race. He couldn't have gone.
Lance first learned about the fight game as a 5-year-old, getting knocked around in his father's pub in Grenfell. By 9 years old, he was competing, his first fight in the 27-kilo class. The last 3 years, Lance has been training under Michael Sinclair, boxing mainly at the Police Citizens Youth Club at Broadmeadow. With a record of 24 wins and 17 losses, he's had his ups and downs, but says the Nationals are his chance to win gold for his coach and family. Lance then aims to pursue greater ambitions like his idol Jeff Fennick. Boxing is facing a difficult future. Some people perceive it as too dangerous and are looking for the sport to be banned. Lance says it's safer than football, and with the right trainer, injury isn't a problem.
It depends on the person, really. Someone is to know the sport.
Do you ever worry about getting hurt?
No, because if you think, that's when you get hurt.
It had to happen eventually. After leaving Sydney's Central Station at 9:30 this morning with 300 passengers on board, the XPT took just 1 hour, 55 minutes and 51 seconds to make the trip. Reaching a top speed of 156 kilometres an hour, the speedster of State Rail took 6 minutes and 4 seconds off the old record, set in the days when there was no speed limit on the track.
We had 3 speed restrictions, one at Stanmore, one at Ashfield and one this side of the Hawkes River Bridge. And we lost about 7 minutes with those.
So it would have been a lot quicker.
It would have been quicker, yes.
Ted Daly is State Rail's senior driver. After 48 years in trains, he's seen it all. Ted worked as a fireman and driver on 3801 and has a soft spot for the old train, but says technology has certainly improved the rail system.
Well, this is a more modern train. You can sit up here, you can see everything. If you're sitting in a steam engine, all you can see is out that side. You can't even see a station when you're coming into it.
Which would you prefer?
Well, I actually prefer to drive these now, but I'm pleased I knew the steam era.
To commemorate today's record, the Chief Executive of State Rail, Ross Sayers, unveiled a coat of arms for the special City of Newcastle XPT.
All 7 of the state's power stations have been affected by the 48-hour stoppage, which began at midnight last night. The ETU, FEDFA and AWMU want further talks over a roster dispute. Elcom says it wants more weekend work by cleaners and maintenance staff when electricity demand is lower. The unions say the new roster will cause problems with their family and social life. Previously, they worked 2 out of every 4 weekends. The new plan is for them to work 2 out of every 3. Elcom claims the new roster will save them about $10 million by removing duplication and overlap. The dispute was listed in the State Industrial Commission this afternoon, but any decision on a return to work will not be known until after tomorrow morning's massed meeting of workers in Graham Park, Gosford. Both the unions and Elcom stress that the state's power supply is not threatened at this stage.
Newcastle's Hunter Street Mall was one of the first to be introduced to an Australian city. While it has certainly established itself as a wonderful haven for shoppers, Lord Mayor Alderman John McNaughton admits age is beginning to show.
But we've got to bring it up to date. It's over 20 years old. We need to fix it.
As a result, right now, council officers are preparing a report on the feasibility of extending the mall eastward to take in the post office, police and public works buildings block. But probably more significantly, such a development would also encompass the Old Soldiers Monument, which right now stands on the footpath at the front of the post office. Over the years, war veterans and armed forces groups have continued to lobby the City Council to have the statue relocated to the Civic Park to allow it to be included in the many military ceremonies that take place there. A big task to undertake, and one Alderman McNaughton says won't be necessary if the mall extensions go ahead.
With the mall extension, our city architects have made it a real feature of the mall in order to see that it can stay in that position and it can be used.
Of course, the mall extensions are still a long way from fruition. The report must make it past tomorrow night's council meeting before any firm plans can be made, and even more importantly, it must meet with the approval of the people.
Now, it's really premature to look at that because we haven't discussed it with all the local shopkeepers, with the workers at the post office and so on. We're well advanced with our planning for it. It needs to go on public exhibition, and so that all those people can be satisfied that their businesses will be favourably affected, that work won't be stopped and that can all proceed. The important thing is that
We'll have one of our new trucks very shortly.
Huh?
charge there any?
Yeah, it's Chris's.
Trying to pick that to me, right?
By day, the moths can be found searching for food, combing flowers for nectar to nourish their already plump bodies. By night, the bogong is drawn to the bright lights, where they swarm with frantic abandon. The moth is distinguished by its dull, heavy torso, black to brownish colouring and 5 centimetre wingspan. Once considered a delicacy by tribal Aborigines, it's now a pest to many householders in the Hunter. Westerly winds have blown the bogong from its northern breeding ground to our region. Way off course, the moths were heading for their summer retreat in the snowy mountains. But the good news is these fluttery fly-by-nights are not here to stay. According to Brian Conroy from Newcastle University, a week should see the insects gone. In the meantime, he says there is no need to destroy them.
No, they're no threat at all, really. The moths that are here at the moment have not mated, and they won't in fact mate until next the autumn. And so there'll be no caterpillars to eat clothes or anything like that.
In fact, the experts are urging us to let bogongs be bogongs, because then, before we know it, the bogongs really will be gone.
The Coal Industry Tribune. In all, the massive investment by the company amounts to $4 million if all stock is added to the value of the new building. Combined Packaging began business 15 years ago and 8 years back built this warehouse in Rural Drive. It then had to be extended, but that was its limit. And now, the new super warehouse across the street will cater for bulk sales of all sorts of catering wares, from serviettes to plastic glasses to Christmas decorations. Mr. Peacock took all this in on his way to unveiling a plaque which illustrated the flattery to which he was subjected by his hosts. The plaque referred to the Right Honourable Jerry Peacock, a prefix usually reserved for the Prime Minister. Combined Packaging's Managing Director, Carl Mason, is confident his $4 million investment is a good one.
Many people now rely on supplies from Sydney, and it's taking them 2 or 3 weeks to get their stock through. But with a warehouse of this size, which is possibly the biggest outside any capital city, will allow many people to be able to come in, get their stocks, move away hour to hour, and not taking 2 or 3 weeks to maintain their stock levels.
Business and Consumer Affairs Minister Peacock praised Mr. Mason's enterprise and used it as an illustration of his government's concentration on encouraging the private sector.
It is the first occasion for a very long time that I've seen a couple of small businessmen who started off in a small way in so short a time, namely 15 years, become a major distributor, not only for the Newcastle area but as far west as Tamworth, down to Sydney and up the coast.
And your government's policy is to boost that sort of thing happening?
Absolutely. We want to encourage that because Newcastle's got to look in new directions and is. As a matter of fact, coming into the city today, you could see it and feel it, that it's gone through its hard times, it's learnt from them. It's now expanding its commerce, its industry, so it's very diversified. And it ought to be, in my view, the major port for northern New South Wales, the major distribution centre for northern New South Wales, and in fact a large area of the state. And this is part of that process.
The Red Cross is synonymous with the war effort, but that doesn't mean in these days of peacetime it's simply in limbo. Far from it, says Stella Smith, the assistant to the regional manager, who admits she has a full-time job just keeping up with the latest venture. Red Cross volunteers across the Hunter have thrown themselves behind.
Sort of when the war ended, it didn't mean the end of the Red Cross?
No, even though Red Cross was founded on blood and war, it's now looking always at the needs in the community and trying to meet those needs.
It's that type of dedication and diversity that has seen dozens of Red Cross members across the Hunter give their every spare moment to the worthy cause. Women like Margaret Hunt, Thelma Keane, Gwen Hardman and Helen Wilson epitomise the caring, hard-working image of the Red Cross volunteer. Each over a series of years has done whatever she could for the other people, whether it be in hospital care, beauty care or even health programs. Today, each of those women was awarded with a special medal to honour her work. Of course, while there are plenty more like these 4 Red Cross branches across Australia, Stella Smith admits there is still a big part of the community who is oblivious to what the society is achieving.
There's more to Red Cross than you think, and we find that most people are very surprised when they hear about the things that Red Cross are doing now, because the majority of people have this image of perhaps blood, war and disaster still, where we're involved with not only the beauty care program and cosmetic camouflage, but first aid classes, and we have a school volunteer program.
There's the new condition.
It's a sporting institution in America, baseball in the summer and gridiron in the winter. With their shoulder pads and helmets, quarterbacks, offence and defence and superstars such as The Fridge and Aussie player kangaroo Colin Scott, the game is in a league of its own. It's a long way from the Coliseum in Los Angeles to Warners Park, Warners Bay, but 34 dedicated footballers train there twice a week, practising the moves that they most probably picked up on television.
Very difficult. You tend to learn off the teams you play against. The hierarchy of the league in Sydney are quite free with their information. If you've got a problem, you just ask them and they help you out, but it's mainly a learning experience as we go along.
Coach Steve Engel has been impressed with his team's performance. On Saturday they played the Cronulla Sutherland Seahawks, a team which they have beaten 3 times this season. Confidence is high for a clean run to the finals. With a winning side come more recruits, and Steve Engel says the future looks good for Newcastle Gridiron.
Most people would play football as we know it. Why would they want to play gridiron?
It's a very similar game. It's a collision sport. The padding helps, but it also hurts. So it suits the same type of people that look at rugby league and rugby union as a good sport.
How are you going to go on the weekend?
We're going to win.
Garbage-eating seagulls at Redhead Tip are expert at dodging wheels. They've been doing it for years. Many residents say 15 years too long. The Lake Macquarie City Council proposes to extend the life of the tip and increase its size for use until 1993. Although not pleased, some residents accept that may be necessary until something else can be done with the rubbish. But many residents totally reject another council proposal to establish a brand new tip adjacent to the old one. They say they've had enough.
The impact on our area has been devastating, both for the environment and the people who live here. There's a lot of unknown health risks for the environment as well as for the people.
Mrs. Rosa says liquid waste from the existing dump washes through sand into the dual wetlands and then into the sea at Redhead. She claims the same thing would happen if a new dump was established in that area. And she says vermin is destroying fauna at nearby Awabakal. State member for Charlestown Richard Face has raised the issue in Parliament and it will be discussed on the 7th of next month. In the meantime, a group of Redhead residents is banding together to form a committee which aims to eradicate the rubbish problem. Some say legislation should be introduced to ensure companies recycle certain products. There are also calls for the establishment of a Lower Hunter Waste Authority. It's hoped such an organisation could find a better way of disposing of rubbish.
The message from these Redhead residents is clear.
Sort the rubbish out, use what we can use and dispose of what we can't use in a way that it won't affect the society or the environment anymore.
Concerned residents now plan to meet at the Redhead Community Volunteer Library this Saturday morning at 9 o'clock to formalise their committee and decide what further action can be taken. Belinda Borissow reporting for NBN News. The new 5-tonne Hino rescue truck is being introduced to rescue work as the old familiar 3-tonne Ford 350s are being phased out. Although a bit slower than its forerunner, the new vehicle has been custom built to carry more equipment. Police rescue personnel from Sydney designed the truck. This one is the Newcastle district's first. Hard hats, the jaws of life, breathing apparatus and a chainsaw are just some of the tools it will carry. And the truck has its own generator, enabling both it and the surrounding area to be fully lit at accident and crime scenes.